Hi students of U.S. History, Professor Haas here for week 4. I thought I'd take a couple minutes again to go over some housekeeping issues, some common questions that have been asked over the past week, and try to focus you back to being able to successfully complete the course. So the first and the biggest issue that I think we've dealt with this week is many people were having trouble posting to previous weeks. Perhaps they joined the course late, or they simply were having problems with Blackboard. So let me address number one. If you came into the class late, please make sure you talk to me that you've had trouble submitting something because I might have locked it out. Because typically for the course, I'll put an assignment due, and then I'll lock the assignment out after the due date, and then we'll deal with case-by-case situations for if you can turn in things late. The second issue is getting into Blackboard and being able to view videos and all the different elements that I've put into Blackboard. Now, I know we use a lot of different browsers, and there are a lot of technical differences between if you're using a laptop, a desktop, a phone, whatever the device you're using. So what I would suggest is if you're having a technical problem, please contact the CPSI office. Jonathan Small's the director, Yen is the online support service specialist, Ryan Lunenfield is the technical specialist in online design, so he might be able to direct you as to what's the problem with your browser, or what browser you should have. In general, I can't really give you really good ideas of how to make your specific situation work because I'm not on the technical end. I'm simply on the teaching end. So I don't want to confuse you about that I don't want to help you, but I just want to get you the quickest help possible, the quickest speed of getting your problem solved, and that's going to be through the CPSI office. I do also know there's a 1-800 number for Blackboard if Blackboard's having some issues, and that should be right on your home page for Blackboard. And you can always ask CPSI if you need that contact information. So feel free to contact CPSI and they will be able to help you with any issues you might have technically. In terms of content always, you can always feel free to ask me if you don't understand something or you have a question on a due date or something about the physical nature of the course and the syllabus. So with that said, I hope that alleviates some of the stress and problems. I will take things late if it was a technical issue or if it was a serious issue that you need to let me know about. So I don't accept things late just for the sake of it. I feel it's unfair to the students who are doing the work on time and made the commitment to the class. So that's just my take on accepting work late. Let's talk about this week. So what we have coming up is, I think, my personal favorite. I think a lot of people's personal favorite parts of history, the Revolutionary War. And everything we've had up until now could be classified as the pre-American history, the history of our colonies, of the British in America, foundational and definitely important, definitely influencing our future. But now is when we're going to actually get into American history, the history of our people once we establish independence and, a constitutional form of government. So the chapter begins looking at the aftermath of the early incursions of Lexington and Concord, the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now, in these battles, remember, the majority of soldiers were farmers, the Massachusetts militia, which was taken over eventually by George Washington leading this army. But then you have this segmented sort of argument of there's a national army, the Continental Army, but the real powerhouse is these militias. And the militias want to keep power in the states. They want to defend their homeland. They don't necessarily care too much about other states or other colonies. The Continental Army, which is under Washington, has to unite the different colonies together to stop the British. So you do have this uneasy balance between militias and the Continental Army throughout the rest of the war. So after Bunker Hill, we eventually get to the point where Henry Knox brings cannons from Fort Ticonderoga and aims them down from Dorchester Heights and eventually expels the British from Boston. And after the British leave, they're going to come back. They go to Halifax for a time. Washington is a hero. He's looked at as this great leader of the Continental Army. And then soon after, in 1776, just about the time of the signing of the Declaration, there's a return to New York City. And the ships amass in New York City. They fight against Washington at New York, And after several failed battles, Washington is defeated. And Washington escapes from New York, travels through New Jersey and down into Pennsylvania, where he'll spend a lot of his winters. You heard of Valley Forge. After New York is conquered, it will be controlled by the British for the whole rest of the war. So this largest city in America will be, second largest technically at this point, will be controlled by the British for the rest of the war. Meanwhile, you're going to have an attempt of the British to take Philadelphia. And they're going to come by sea, they're going to come north on the Delaware River, march on Philadelphia. Again, Washington is defeated. So Washington's losing a lot of battles in this war. Part of the reason he's so victorious in the end, eventually they'll get the help of the French, and he will have a success at the end. If he was just looked at throughout history based on his battles at New York and Philadelphia, he would be looked at as a total loser. He had some initial battles that he won in New Jersey, and he won at Yorktown in the end. But really, his history is very, very muddled as to what he actually was successful in. But what he was really good at was he had the people on his side. He had his soldiers on his side. He cared for his soldiers. And he had a leadership that he embodied that presidential appeal, which is part of that reason why eventually he would be elected the first president of the United States. So after the Revolutionary War is over, the Battle of Yorktown, and the British win, or the British are defeated, and the Americans win, the Americans have to figure out, what do we do now? So there's discussion as to how do we run our country? And meanwhile, through the war, they had been having this system of government known as the Articles. The Articles was a very disjointed, centralized government where each state had lots of power, and the central government, they really had very little power. They could wage war, they could make treaties, they couldn't raise taxes, the central government. So how did they pay for things? They begged, borrowed, and stole. And it wasn't very easy, so as a result, they didn't really have a budget to work with. They had no president, they had no Supreme Court to authorize if laws are even fair. So eventually this system would not work. In 1786, the farmers of Massachusetts out in the Springfield, Worcester area rose in revolution against this central government because it could not help them with what they needed after the war. They needed to be compensated for their fighting. They had lost their jobs, the economy was failing, and the government was not doing anything to take care of these poor souls who had fought so gallantly in the war. As a result, Washington's called up to put down this rebellion. And this, in addition to a couple other events that happened in those 1780s, led to a fear of this government's not going to work. As a result, Washington and others call a special meeting, a secret meeting in Philadelphia, known as the Constitutional Convention, where they sit down and they write a new document, which is the same document we currently have, the United States Constitution. And be it for a few changes over the past 300 years, we've had the same Constitution in the United States. So, pretty amazing document that it has been so flexible that it would work through all of our generations afterwards. So as you're reading this chapter, keep in mind that America didn't start out very easily. It wasn't like we won the war and everybody was together and working as a team. We had disunity, we had class warfare, we had religious warfare, we had slavery, and all these issues had to be contended with before we could establish ourselves as a world power. So I hope you enjoy the reading and the learning this week. I will be posting your first paper, which is going to be due at the end of the week, which is based on the first 4 weeks of class. Again, if you have questions, please let me know. And feel free to contact SIPSI if you have any issues with Blackboard or any technical issues. Okay, until next week, I will see you then.